Thank you very much, Michael. And as Billy said, Michael himself is a role model in this community. And another person who's a role model in the community is Linda Fries, who's here with Michael as well. And both of them have set just incredible standards of not only philanthropy, but getting involved besides writing a check. That's what he's done here at the Pan Mass Challenge, and the both of them do that throughout the community. So to be introduced by you, Michael, is just terrific. Thank you very much. To have, I start in many, many ways. It was literally 4 years ago, Tuesday, that I got the first call from my doctor after a physical, who said he found something wrong in my blood, and he thought that it was probably a mistake in a lab test, so could I please come back and get a new exam, which I proceeded to do. I didn't know at the time that that was the beginning of a couple of months of tests, which I continued to fail, which led to the diagnosis in January of '95 of multiple myeloma, which was a cancer that I never even heard of. And then I was told it was incurable. And the feeling of devastation, of the idea that you had once had control of your life, which is now finished. This kind of plunging down an elevator shaft without a parachute. Whatever metaphor you choose to use, this happened to me just about 4 years ago, exactly. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office first with my wife, and then the wall started to close in on me. And he's telling me all these things that I had to look forward to: bone marrow stem cell transplants, isolation rooms. My only experience with bone marrow transplants was through my friend Paul Songas, who had had one 12 or 14 years earlier. I didn't know there had been tremendous progress since then. And Paul, the weekend I was diagnosed, called me and we talked at length, and he told me that, you know, your life will be forever changed, but that does not mean you have to give up living a full life. And certainly he, as one of the primary heroes for so many of us with cancer, demonstrated that because he ran for president. But the fact is that as I sat in that room with the walls closing in, I really didn't know what to expect. And as we went to Dana-Farber the next night, where we met Lee Nadler, who took us around the hospital, as I drove up under that famous archway there that says Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and I turned to Joyce and I said, you know, what am I doing here? And Lee, at that point, took us around, showed me isolation rooms, and basically, as I explained to him the claustrophobic feeling I was experiencing, you know, the loss of my life as I knew it. He said basically, well, you know, you're strong, you'll go for it, you'll go for the cure. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years, except that there's still no cure for multiple myeloma. But I have a doctor. His name is Ken Anderson. And for those of you who don't know him, you've missed an incredible opportunity. Because Ken Anderson, who also runs the Kraft Blood Lab and has numerous other administrative responsibilities that David Nathan keeps drafting him for, which takes him away from his research into finding a cure for myeloma sometimes. The fact is that this man became not only a tremendous oncologist to me, but a friend and a partner. And he explained to me what multiple myeloma was, this explosion of plasma cells and et cetera. You know, sometimes I still don't understand it, and I read the journals and experience it. But what he did prepare me for, in a sense, was say there was only one thing you can do, and that was to have very, very aggressive treatment. And to have that kind of aggressive treatment which basically included a stem cell transplant in March of 1996. Now, the transplant experience is something that, whether or not you've recovered, and you don't recover from this devastating diagnosis, you try to get on with your life. And I think one of the most difficult things for us patients, or for any of you who have been patients, is to figure out what to do next, if you have the chance and if you have the time. And the choices you make about what you do next becomes far more precious because you're so much more cognizant of the fact that there is no guarantee that you have it tomorrow. Now, there's some people who say, okay, I could walk off the curb and get hit by a bus tomorrow. And that may be true. But I still believe what Paul told me that first weekend and had written in his own book, the three of the worst words you can ever hear in the English language is that you've got cancer. Now, the fact that it's not the death sentence it used to be, particularly for the kids at the Jimmy Fund, is a remarkable testament to the kind of work and professionalism and high-quality care that you get at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. And although I would never have predicted 4 years ago that I would refer to Dana-Farber as part of my family, they are. And the doctors and the nurses there, everybody there. I mean, if you've ever been in the clinic, as crowded as it gets because cancer, is up. These folks are the most caring, unsung heroes in the fight against cancer. The nurses and the doctors. And I've not met a person at Dana-Farber who doesn't wear their caring on their sleeve. And I don't know how they do it, because there's a lot of people like me who are already gone. There's a lot of folks like me who have done everything they can, and because of reasons beyond their control, because of the depth and the breadth of their cancer, they didn't make it. And these nurses and doctors form relationships with us. And how they maintain their balance in doing so and invest so much emotional commitment to us is remarkable because of the fact that so many of us may not make it. And Ken Anderson has been this guiding light to me for these years. Going through the transplant experience was one of those experiences in life that is as bad or worse than you think it's going to be. You know, sometimes you prepare for bar exams or big events, and you think, how are you going to get through it? Giving birth, all these things, that life cycle events. And you find out that maybe it wasn't as bad as you thought, or you forget in the midst of it that it was such a joyous event, it wasn't as painful. But going through a transplant doesn't give you that experience. Going through a transplant was just as bad as some of my colleagues or patients told me it was. It involves weeks of chemotherapy, full body radiation, 2 weeks at least where you're basically unconscious to the world, where you're taken from, at least for my piece, now that they're over Brigham, it's a little different, but where you're taken under these underground tunnels that exist between Dana-Farber and Brigham that you could never find your way back to, even if you left all the breadcrumbs in the world. But the experience there is such that you've really lost now total control of your life. And you've placed it into the hands of these doctors and nurses at Dana-Farber. And you lie there sometimes in your own vomit. You suffer sometimes from incredible pain that no painkiller deals with. You suffer from the sense that as much support and love as you get from family and others, that you still are there at 3 o'clock in the morning lying there alone. And the fact is that when you go through this experience, you cannot basically do it alone, but it still is a very lonely experience. And I know that everyone in this room, or anyone in this room who has experienced any form of cancer or any life-threatening disease, understands the fact that it's something that patients can only really talk about with each other sometimes. Because it is, again, that sense that not only aren't you clear that tomorrow doesn't come, Bob Dylan has this famous song where he says, yesterday is just a memory, and tomorrow never turns out like it's supposed to be. And that's what you feel like when you're in this transplant experience, or going through chemo, or going through radiation. And I think what's important to say today is not my autobiography about my cancer experience, because anyone here who's had cancer can speak just like I can about the experience. What I do want to talk about is the kind of impact that it has on all of us. And that means all of you. Because in the fight against cancer, every patient, or every person who has the burden of dealing with it, is a hero. In a world where the use of the word courage is probably the most abused term in our language, in a world where the word hero is used so flippantly and capriciously about athletes and a political person who takes a tough vote on a bill, or that, I don't diminish heroes in other fields, but I will tell you that every patient I've met is a hero. And what I want to say to all of you who have ridden in this challenge, which I hope someday that I can do, is that you are also heroes. Because what you have helped us do is give us a sense of empowerment. And it's not just by the amount of money that you raise, which is phenomenal. I don't know the total this year. I guess nobody knows yet, but Billy will, you told her to tell him. But the fact is that by doing this, you're empowering Dana-Farber to do the kind of research that we need so that some of us who are now a little bit beyond the so-called statistical lifetime of our disease can continue on. And if you think that the aches and the pains that you have as you ride over those hills are just something you feel to yourself, the payoff is unbelievable. Not just by the sense of enthusiasm and exhilaration that I felt at Sturbridge in your getting ready for that ride, but the impact of the ride. And one of the things that is stolen from us with a diagnosis of cancer, and one of the things we have to fight hardest to get back, is a sense of empowerment. And I am not just saying this to you all because you brought me up on the stage. You know, you've got to know what a difference you make. Because when we're lying there at 3 o'clock in the morning, or someone wakes us up again for the vital signs that I'm not sure why they're asked us about anyway, why can't they just do it at 9 in the morning? They give you all these damn drugs to get you asleep, and then they wake you up, take your temperature. But the fact is that when you're lying there, and you're in the cancer, the kind of pain that is absolutely indescribable. And I will tell you, I think it's Emerson who said that anyone who has not experienced pain has missed living half of the universe. And that's not anything I wish on you. The pain that you have, that I have from cancer, at different times is so unrelenting and is so penetrating to my whole existence that today, or last night actually, was the first time I was standing up in about 2 weeks. Because the current treatment I'm on after the transplant, which was successful, is that I've relapsed now 3 times since then. And each relapse reminds you of what happened that first diagnosis. And the first relapse I had, which was just last November, this week, which Ken didn't even want to spoil my birthday. But at that point, it had jumped up to such a high level as it was before the transplant. And it's done that now twice. Now the treatment is, because I'm becoming a little more chemo-resistant, is a treatment of Decadron. I don't know how many here in the room have had the experience of Decadron steroid treatments. But this introduces you to yet another world of disempowerment. A world which a week ago, or through Wednesday, because of the chemical reactions that I experienced from this drug, make you almost catatonic. And you sit there at dinner table with your kids who are looking at you for every sign that you're getting sick again. And one of my daughters, on a repeated basis over the last few weeks, because I've been in bed most of the last few weeks, has said to me, "Are you going to die?" On Monday and on Wednesday and on Friday. And what do you tell a 12-year-old who's now, I mean, she was 8 when I was diagnosed, and her sister. And you say, okay, we're all going to die. Is that an existential answer to a 12-year-old kid? But you say basically, and my answer to her each time is the folks at Dana-Farber are doing everything they can to make sure that I'm going to be around. And that is the best answer I can give her. I can't lie. I can't guarantee anything to her. I can't even guarantee I'm going to be at her bat mitzvah next year. But this treatment makes you disengage from everybody you know. This treatment leaves you to a point where when you withdraw from it, it's as if you're withdrawing from some kind of other, the drugs they talk about, heroin or whatever. And you're, again, totally out of control. So what do you look to for support? You look within yourself, and whatever religious tradition you come from, if you choose. You can't get through this without a lot of faith. And whatever faith you choose to express, you have to really look within yourself. And what I've decided is that I've become what I've said before is like an optimistic fatalist. Okay? Which is that I am not blind faith. I cannot tell you that I am guaranteed, and people tell me all the time, you're going to be great, you're young, and look how strong you are, and you know, you sound great today. Nobody up here would know that I'm in the midst of all this treatment, and on Thursday I have my chemotherapy, and they're probably going to put me back on Decadron again. So for this brief window, I've had 3 days in the last 2 months where I am clear-headed enough to speak to people like yourselves. And this is this experience of being out there and being disempowered and not having a sense that you can actually make change in your life again. Because you're sitting there and you're struggling. And Ken Anderson says, this drug is really your friend. And I say, with friends like this, right? But it's working, it's knocking it back down, and there may be a transplant in my future, or there may be some clinical trials with Rituxan or a T-cell vaccine, and the longer we all stay around, the better chance there is that something good is going to come down the pike. And you help us stay around. So I can't tell you that in those days when I'm sitting there with incredible pain or catatonic and can barely talk to my kids that I'm remembering that you rode your Pan Mass Challenge. That would be a big lie. But I can tell you lots of times that I came back from Sturbridge, that the inspiration that Billy Starr has given all of us and all of you by providing a vehicle for you to do this makes him, and as well as all of you, and Meredith as well, whose support for complementary therapies has been so strong, it makes all of you our partners in this. So when you're writing, whether you're writing for somebody you know, or many of you are writing for someone you don't even know, I want you to know that we who are there in the clinics and in the beds at Dana-Farber and at Brigham, we know that you're out there. And maybe even next summer when you do that, maybe they can put it in some kind of closed circuit TV to some of the transplant rooms and some of the other places, even the Sturbridge ceremony or something. Because to know that you're not standing alone is an unbelievable experience, whether it's in the fight against bigotry or the fight against cancer. And the metaphors of my experience can be translated to anybody. But I will finish it with this piece. That as I go through this treatment, and I'm going to enjoy the next 3 days, like, you know, I mean, I'm going to be 45 on Tuesday, and there was absolutely no guarantee 4 years ago on that birthday that I would ever be here today, and certainly that I would be speaking to you. But 520,000 people die from cancer every year, and so far I haven't been one of them. And the reason is because of Dana-Farber. Now, I don't want you to think, and I don't want David Nathan to think, that I don't have a few things I'd like to see change at the institution. And I wouldn't be true to myself or to so many other patients who were served with me on the Patient Advisory Council or the Complementary Therapies Task Force that I co-chair with Cynthia Medeiros, who's an unbelievable person if you don't know her, and is just an incredible, energetic, committed person to patient care and throughout Dana-Farber and to the ways that families are dealt with. I wouldn't be true to myself if I said that one of the things we're still pushing, and which I believe has to happen, is a better way to provide not only the access to complementary therapies, but for some people who economically can't afford it because our insurance companies are still fighting us on it, some kind of economic equity to make sure that through some of the money that either you raise or other people give, that we can provide people with the kinds of support that they need for acupuncture and massage and guided imagery and meditation and yoga and Reiki and whatever else that we need to get our sense back of empowerment. And let me just say one thing about the recent controversy that has been featured so prominently in the newspapers between the Journal of New England Medicine and now JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, which came out this week. The complementary therapies that have served me well, that we are now doing research at Dana-Farber into, and have this incredibly dynamic group of doctors and nurses and a few of us patients in this complementary therapies task force, we are not talking at Dana-Farber about the extreme forms of alternative or complementary therapies that the Journal of New England Medicine has criticized. We're not talking about shark cartilage or ESIAC or some of the other things which may or may not help people because they haven't been documented. What we're talking about is the kind of complementary therapies that you don't even need to have a life-threatening illness to take into your life. These are things that help reduce stress. And what can cause more stress than the experiences that we have at Dana-Farber? And so, for me, in preparation for my transplant and since my transplant, I've been so moved by the support we've gotten from people at Dana-Farber, all the way up to David Nathan, who the day we really discussed it, once we switched the word almost from alternative to complementary, we moved to a new horizon. Because I would never, and none of us at the institution would ever say that this is anything you do without consulting and being part of a partnership with the doctors at Dana-Farber. And this is nothing you would do instead of doing the kind of proven, documented treatment that has kept us alive. And as bad and as terrible as chemotherapy and radiation is, at least we know it works in most cases. But in the controversy that has taken place between these two institutions, medical institutions, these two journals, you see two extremes taken out. The extremes that the Journal of New England Medicine say it's patronizing to your patients. You're just giving them placebos to feel better. So what the hell is the matter with that? They leave us there on the beds with the chemo and radiation and then don't want to help complete the task by making sure that the massage relaxes you from the tension you go through this experience, or that the meditation gives you 20 minutes a day that you're not thinking about having cancer, or the yoga, or the acupuncture, which has now been recognized by the National Cancer Institute and the National Institute of Health as reducing the nausea from chemotherapy and reducing the fatigue. And the fatigue that we have as cancer patients is one of the least understood pieces of our experience, because once your hair comes back, which is also a terrible experience as your hair falls out because you realize you're losing part of your old normal self and you develop this, what we call a new normal. Once your hair comes back and you look a little bit maybe like I do today, people say, well, you must be better. And you go home and you hit the wall. Anyone here who's got it, you know what I'm talking about, or had it. You're in the middle of a conversation, you think you're functioning in a normal way, and all of a sudden, boom, your brain's gone, and you're exhausted. So the fact that acupuncture can help restore some of that fatigue so you can be a functioning member of your family and your community, these are things that are not extreme, and these are the things that I believe that Dana-Farber is beginning to lead the way on. Because the other things do need to be checked out, they need to be tested, the FDA needs to be involved, and I think all of us believe that they need to be registered and there need to be standardized treatments of herbs and vitamins. And as David Eisenberg has warned all of us with complementary therapies, sometimes some of these herbs and vitamins that people take can actually contradict the conventional treatment you're doing and can cause further problems. This is why we need regulation, and this is why we need standardization in complementary therapies. But this is not why we should be rejecting the kinds of things that help us get through this experience. So I am really pleased, and I believe blessed, to be at an institution that has moved so far but still needs to move a lot farther. And all of your help to help us do that so that we will have someday at Dana-Farber one-stop shopping, that after you finish your consultation with your oncologist or you go through your treatment, you might be able to go to acupuncture, which we now have a part-time acupuncture who's available, acupuncturist. You might be able to have a massage. You might be able to go to a yoga or meditation room. I'm not looking for the stars here, folks. But let me tell you, these are the things that have helped me and so many other people get through this. So we're not radical revolutionaries. We are committed supporters, indebted forever, however long we live, to what Dana-Farber does for us. And so back to the issue of heroes, and I close. Every struggle against cancer, whatever cancer you have, is not only a struggle over your body, but it is also a struggle over your mind. And the resilience that you have to develop to get through this, the experiences you have to transcend, the talking to your own people in your family when you can't have your mind back, as what's happened the last few weeks with me, the frustration and the tears of your family and your loved ones, because you're sitting there on a couch for 8 hours when you don't even know what's happening. We need you to help us get through that. We cannot ever do this fight alone. And the fact that you folks do this ride, you know, you probably don't need any more encouragement. Your own sense of inspiration and fulfillment, it comes from finishing the ride, whichever ride you do. But I'm going to tell you something. When I walked into Sturbridge this past summer and got that, it was like Woodstock without the music. And that translates into a better completion of our lives. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with me. I don't think anybody does. And I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the patients. I don't know where my mic, there goes. I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of us there. But the fact is that we're not alone, and you're reminding us of that is very, very important. And the headlines that say faith or prayer also help you recover. The fact that faith and prayer help you get through this shouldn't surprise anybody. It's like saying that water helps a thirsty person. But the combination of faith and a combination of Dana-Farber's treatment, a combination of the kind of empowerment that you help us get by the work you do and the money you raise, this is giving us a much better chance of survival. On behalf of all of us who are the beneficiaries of your writing, on behalf of all of us who are patients, on behalf of all of us who have lived with this total uncertainty in our lives, I want to thank you and wish you good luck.